Conference will now be recorded.
So who just jumped in? Who did I miss?
Dean,
Who's?
Dean, Dean Lilly.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't need any time. Sorry, I had to.
you came back in.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that.
I didn't realize that you had left. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone to the active surveillance meeting. This is all for active surveillance. It's not for somebody who is in treatment, and we don't necessarily talk about any advanced treatment. We also talk quite a bit about BPH as of late. So if we have some questions about BPH, then we'll address those as we go as well. And we do have a few folks on that have been through that process. I'd like to thank our sponsors. So we have Telix, Novartis, Blue Earth Diagnostics, and Foundation Medicine. And without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So we appreciate all their support. Uh, we have a few moderators tonight, myself, Ray, Michael, and then Eric, who's home now. So we'll be the ones that kind of run through things. We do not have any new people. So with that, uh, we will kick it off. I'm gonna kick it off with Brian. Have you stopped driving, Brian?
Yeah, I stopped driving.
Okay. Well, we had no new folks, so we'll let you go first.
Okay, I don't really. I was in the group Monday and asked the same question, and Rick gave me a good answer. Um, I'm still working on the biopsy thing. So how important is how important is it for the? I know the biopsy, the parametric trans perineal.
Transperineal?
Yeah, the transperineal biopsy. But how important is it to get the right person to do that? And then when I'm done with that, then take my test to somewhere else to get it evaluated. Like Rick was saying, whoever does that biopsy is going to want to do the treatment. But I'm going to take my treatment back to the VA. But how important is it to do? Because I was researching the people today, and I don't know how to pick. I don't know how to decide which person. How do you decide who's going to do that biopsy?
Well, I would say the one that has the most experience doing it. Unlike Europe, we don't have as many folks that have done the transperineal, but there are if you go into a center of excellence, you can usually find somebody that's going to do that. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I've had trouble finding one locally in Atlanta, but I think I found one. He's been doing prostate urology for a long time. And you just got to keep asking around and who does them and what kind of experience do they have.
Yeah.
He did set me up with a lady at the UW, University of Washington. But then they sent me a message saying she doesn't do the perineal, so they referred me to some other people. So now I get to pick. So that's kind of where I'm at, just kind of figure out which. So I'm trying to figure out which one, this new person, the person that's been doing it for a while.
Person that's been doing it for a while.
But some of those people are oncologists too, and they're going to want to do the treatment versus somebody that's just a urologist, is what I figured out today. You know what I'm saying?
Here's a little trick I learned to kind of beat the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing terrible, but if you just want to say, yeah, I want to continue my treatment with you, let's get this transperineal biopsy done and then move forward. And then if you feel like that's not who you want to continue treatment with, you just say, sorry guys, I'm going somewhere else. It happens all the time, but that's the only way to kind of grease the wheels to get in, get your procedure done, and maybe have to get out afterwards if you don't feel comfortable with the treatment. So you're slightly honest, but you're slightly dishonest.
You're not married to this guy.
Yeah.
So if you want to change, you can change. I mean, it's your process. It's not theirs. They may want to, but what do you want?
Yeah,
And
the nurse, go ahead.
I was going to let Andy had a question or a comment.
Well, I think I would be, I agree with both Dan and Eric. You're the patient and they're responsible for you and what your needs are. That's part of advocating for yourself. And that's, I think, a good thing for you to keep in mind.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest and saying, I'm a VA patient.
Yeah.
And because of my cardiac problems, I need a transperineal biopsy, and apparently they don't do them there. And I heard, this would be a good thing, I heard you're really one of the best at that in the area. I'd like you to do this for me, but I will then return, to the VA. Now, the one thing I'm not sure of is if they're doing it, they won't be doing it in their office. So the place they do it, the center they do it, is going to do the first pathology.
Oh,
But that doesn't matter. I
right.
mean, quite honestly, it doesn't matter. You can still do your second opinion, through the proper forms and everything else, and get your information and go back to the VA once you know all that.
Okay. I was, somebody recommended Dr. David Lind. David Lind down here. Does anybody remember who did that? I got it somewhere in my notes.
I don't. It would probably be Rick. Would be
Yeah.
my guess.
Yeah, I think it was Rick. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
he's not available till February of 2026. Unless, but that's for
27, you mean?
I mean, 27.
27, yes. Sorry. But that's for a new patient. Now, if I go get a biopsy through whoever, then I can see him in a couple months or a couple weeks after, they said. So anyways, I just wanted your guys' thoughts on the lady said, yeah, you can change. The nurse navigator said, you can change. Whoever does your biopsy, you can change. They don't like it. And that's kind of the feeling I got from Mary. They don't like it. But then Rick said to have him put it in the notes. Put it in the notes that you're not committed to this person. You might want to go somewhere else, but make sure it's written down. So I'm going to do that.
Is that a good idea? I don't think that's a good idea.
You don't?
Agree.
And they might
Say
be,
you're going to need any treatment, though. That's what I don't understand.
Right. We don't even know.
Results.
And you had a comment. You get your hand up.
Eric, why isn't that a good plan to put it in the notes?
personally, I feel like if they see that, they're not going to put their best energy forward.
Oh, that's right. That's what I was hoping. Okay. Right.
I liked Andy's comment. Hey, I'm a VA patient. Because of my heart issues, I need transperineal. Butter them up. I heard you're one of the best, but I still need to go back to the VA.
That's
You
perfect.
are amazing.
That's amazing. That's perfect.
You're the best.
I did have a
Go ahead.
question. Was the name of the doctor Dr. Lynn?
Yeah, I think it was Dr. David Lind, Lind.
Does he do transperineal biopsies?
I don't know if he does, but he's not available for a year anyways.
I see.
I'm not going to wait a year. If I go get a biopsy right now or in June, which I'm planning on getting one in June because that's as soon as I can get one, then I can see him a couple weeks later, they said.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go back. I guess I would just go back to the VA.
Go ahead,
That's
Dan.
what,
Again, we're planning on where you're going to go and what's going to happen. You don't even know what the results are yet. So this is
Right.
a lot of worrying. This is a lot of worrying for nothing yet. I would not go to the guy and say, I hear you're one of the best, because, listening up to the doctor, the way you want to interview a doctor is the way you want to interview like a roofer or a painter. You ask him straight out, how many of these have you done? How long have you been doing transperineals, and how many of them have you done? If he hesitates or hems or haws, then, you find somebody else, because, when people start approaching your genitals with a large needle, this is like serious stuff.
Yeah, right.
And
then when you get your result, you don't have to tell them anything about second opinions or where you're going to get treated. We don't know what you get your result. You send, if You send it for a second opinion, you get your biopsy, and then you come back here and you talk to us about it, and we'll put all our heads collective wisdom or lack of wisdom together, and we'll tell you what we think maybe you should do next. But
Okay. I know I talked about this every week.
I don't understand. Okay. You can't get a biopsy done until June.
Right, down at the University of Washington, in Seattle here. They said June. There's 2 people that they can do it in June.
Wow.
Yeah.
All
The
right.
VA said they can do a transrectal in April.
Yeah, well, we've already talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
That's
A
not
lot.
that's not your way to go.
Right.
No. So, okay.
All right. Anything else, Brian?
I'll try to look
Or does
up,
anybody-
there's companies that do the software for the MRI fusion. I can see if they can guide you to some local places that do transperineal with MRI fusion and go from there.
Yeah, I put all
What
that.
about- I was going to say, what about that precision point that Andy was talking about? You could contact them and see if they have any doctors. And,
That's one as well. Yeah.
It's a good idea. Precision point. Okay. Is that information in the chat? I got
I'm
that.
gonna find it and post it for you.
So,
Okay.
dueling hands, back to you, Andy.
So my understanding when it comes to precision point, that's when there's a definite lesion that's seen. Because generally speaking, the ultrasound that they use is doesn't have the definition that the ultrasound has of the BK type. They call it BK, where that's like that high resolution micro ultrasound. That's not where they're targeting a specific point, it's where they're mapping, taking biopsies from many places. But according to Dr. Poonan, who I saw just today and asked him about this very thing, he feels because that micro ultrasound is so high resolution, they can see a lot of things that sometimes the MRI can't see. So pinpoint is great because it's only 2 sticks basically, but beyond that, I think it has a purpose, at least with people of excellence who know the difference.
Back to you, Dan.
You can always get in touch with
You're
Exact View.
muted, Dan.
Who?
Dan,
You
you're
can al-
muted.
Dan, you're muted.
You're still muted, Dan.
My hand up, but I can't remember more than one thing at a time. You know, Brian's situation, Andy, is a little different. He had his cancer discovered incidentally during a TERP type procedure. So he's specifically, I think, going to need to get a systematic biopsy to find out how many regions of his prostate are involved. Also,
Yes.
Brian, I notice you're very frequently talking to us from your car. When you go to get your transperineal, they're going to put you in the la-la land for a while. So you got to have someone else who's going to drive you home.
Okay.
So just plan for that.
Yeah, I will. All right.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Brian?
Well, if you want to try and get in touch with Exact View Imaging and find out about a micro ultrasound, find about whether someone does a transperineal with a micro ultrasound. I mean, they might be able to recommend somebody.
Okay.
Good evening, Rick.
Thank
See
you.
Popped in. Are you going to need any time tonight, Rick? Or are you just popping in to?
No, I'm just right now. Oh, yes, I am going to need some time. Yes, I've got something to tell you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, we have no newbies tonight, so
okay.
Get to you relatively.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Yep. All right. Andy Boca and Brian, in case you haven't seen or if you don't have access, Eric put the MRI fusion in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Go ahead, Andy.
So, Rick, if you're still there, I did see Dr. Poonan morning. I explained some of what he had told me, and his people did a third reading of my pathology, which concurred with Dr. Epstein, number one. Number two, they did a third reading of my MRI, which concurred with the NIH that I was a 2, not a 3/4 PIRADS. Both good news. He feels active surveillance is appropriate. PSA every 6 months, MRI yearly, and of course, a first biopsy within a year. So he will do TP, and it's going to be the BK method, not the pinpoint like we were just talking about here, because he really wants to map it out and get everything that he can possibly get at that time. So it was great to see him. He was great. He had a fellow there. He was very good. He came in first. Part two, another subject from last week, Dr. Dan and I've interacted a little bit, because I think it was Levin who had mentioned something about things to avoid before getting your PSA. And one of the things I had brought up was constipation. And I actually asked Dr. Poonan about that. And he said, I showed him, there's very little studies done on this, but the ones that were done, and they're older, like 2012, do confirm that these are issues similar to having your prostate checked, prior to doing your PSA at the pressure. And then they also base the degree of constipation. Are you chronic? Is it acute? Whatever. But it should be treated prior to doing any PSAs, in addition to all the other things that we know are appropriate we watch for before doing PSAs.
Have you guys all seen Howard's recent active surveiller?
Yes.
Where he talked about they've changed the rules now on what you should not do. So basically, sex, exercise, all of that is permissible now, according to the guidelines. So go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, the only comment I have on that is that, that's fine if you're going to listen to the new guidelines, and then you go in and do your PSA, and your PSA is elevated, and you say, shit, I shouldn't have done this. I should. Right. It's gonna take years until that whole mindset is changed.
Well, and that's kind of the anxious surveillance type of thing. You're
exactly
adding one more piece to that anxiety. So
yeah,
I mean, it's not going to hurt you not to exercise, not have sex for a couple days before.
Exactly.
So,
right.
Rick,
it isn't. They're not saying it's permissible. What they're just saying, don't. They're just not mentioning it. Whereas before they said don't do it. Now they're not saying don't do it, but they're not saying do it either. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's very subtle. None of us understand where they're getting this from. At least none of us patient advocates understand.
Exactly.
And when Howard tried to get Egner to comment on it, he wouldn't do it.
Mm.
So, because he wrote to Egner and to see where are you getting this, guys?
Yeah.
We don't really know where it's coming from. Those
I didn't notice that there were any studies that were identified.
No, they didn't cite anything, at least from my memory, and that wasn't something I looked at carefully. There were a couple of other things in there that I wasn't real happy about. I'm trying to remember what they were right now, but I know there were a couple of other things. I have to look at my correspondence with Howard, which I'll do. But And when I get to speak later, I'll make a note and tell you what else I wasn't happy with. I'm just curious if anybody here actually read the guidelines, the new guidelines.
I have not.
No.
Okay.
You're reading Howard's letter.
Yeah. You know what? We wanted people to comment, and we put those guidelines out to everybody and said, anybody want to read them through and comment? But nobody did. So basically, they went in with just my comments and Howard's comments because no one else wanted to read through them. But you know, I do think it's important for us to participate when we're given the opportunity. So otherwise, I don't think we really have the right to complain if we didn't bother to take the time to read them through first. So just saying, you know.
I will say that if you are getting a PSA test and you have been doing consistently a certain way, just stick with it so you don't skew your trend.
Yeah.
So please stay with whatever you've been doing and don't try to, oh, they say this, now I can, you know, go for a bike ride for 3 hours before my PSA test or whatever. Just stick with what you got. Don't change the trend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Phil said, it's not going to hurt you not to.
Right. And for those of you who do read Howard carefully, you might have noticed a reference to the wizard behind the curtain as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which surprised me, but there you go. What do I know? I'm behind the curtain.
You still had a comment?
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to all this data, there's really two things I think everything relies on, and that's volume and time. So the data that's most widely accepted and used, you can, one, read the research on. Two, you have volume, you have enough of a population over enough of a period of time to get less skewed results to know what to follow. So I'm with you, Dan. Just stick with what we know has been happening and for the reasons we know why, until there's other research over time in volume that proves otherwise.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything for Andy? Okay.
I have one other thing on this, which is I did put out a request to the moderators here. If somebody would write up that
yes.
study, I think it would be great. Anyone, and you can use what Howard's written, but I think it's kind of important for us to, and I actually have the language here, and the language says, neither DRE nor bicycle riding appreciably alters the PSA.
Yeah.
And there are two references, and I haven't looked at the references, but whoever reads it, whoever wants to write it up can read the references and tell me whether you agree or not.
Did they mention ejaculation at all?
And most control studies evaluating ejaculation suggest it either does not significantly impact or modestly increases by less than 10% the PSA.
Interesting.
So I will post the language in question, which I did send out. If you look, I sent it out on March the 5th. And I put it in there. So I wasn't actually saying the right thing. Oh, and we're being recorded, so my boo-boo. So that's okay. Here's the language going in the chat window right now. Whoops. That's somebody's email address. Let me try again. And by the way, there are a bunch of sort of numbers in there. And sometimes those numbers refer to studies and sometimes they refer to lines in the text. So it's not patently clear what those numbers refer to. That's why it needs a little somebody to spend half an hour just going through it and reading it. If anybody needs the guidelines, I can send them to you, or Howard can send them to you. I think we send them around, but I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, Rick, if you could put a link to the guidelines, that'd be great. And I would.
Yeah, I will if they're linked, because I think I've got them down there. But let me look and keep an eye on the on the chat window, and I'll see if I can find them and put them in there.
I would also mention that appreciably and modestly are not, you know, those are not statistical terms. Those are English 101 terms.
Yeah.
I thought they were urological terms. Are they not urological terms?
No, only in certain circles.
Oh, okay. All right. Just wondering.
Andy, go ahead.
For some reason, I thought, I could be wrong, in last week's group, this did come up. Somebody mentioned that study, and there was a link. I could be wrong. The other thing I did notice is when I look on the AnCan website at the previous meetings, the chat notes are there too. So if you miss downloading them, you can find them there as well. It's the first time I ever noticed that.
Yeah.
Only if
we try to include if we record a meeting, it's not all previous meetings, but if we record a meeting, then we try to include the chat from that meeting. One of these days, you guys are going to say to us, you know what, record all the meetings, and then we'll record all 4 meetings. But right now, we know that you rather have a couple of meetings that are not recorded, and we respect that.
So Rick, all these things you just posted are more than 10 years old. This is the newest stuff.
This is what they cited. I ain't making it up. This is what came out. So
this ancient history.
Yeah. You got to wonder why they suddenly decided why they didn't read this stuff before. But you know, these guideline panels are really frustrating. Oh, I know what it was. My big bugbear with all these guidelines is that they're still not insisting on fusion biopsies. And that really ticks me off, because we know that fusion biopsies totally make sense. So what they say, I don't have the actual language, what they say is, if you can do fusion biopsies, that's okay, but don't worry if you can't, basically. And you know why they're doing that? Because you've got so many community urologists who aren't in a position to do fusion biopsies, and they're still doing blind biopsies.
Yeah.
And what we've said to them, I've said it, I'm happy to share my comments back to them when I read this originally. It's not in the best interest of the patient. It's in the best interest of the provider, but they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I just put the link into the AUA guidelines.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
So that's in there. All right. With that, anybody else have anything for Andy? If not, we're going to move to leaving in Singapore. Rick, I don't know if you're aware, but we're very international now.
Oh yes, no, I've seen leaving in the groups well before, and as leaving knows, we have other people in Singapore.
Yes.
Oh, that's another thing that I'll make an announcement on. I got to write stuff down. I'm writing stuff down so I don't forget. But I got a Singapore announcement as well.
Okay. All right, Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, NCCN guidelines as well.
Yeah. So this thanks. This is kind of a nice segue, because obviously I had last week, I told you about my PSA story, which was that in February it was 5.31 with my urologist, and then I did a kind of a private health check at my GP office, and it came back as 9.31, and so that was a bit worrisome. And all of you, I thank you very much for kind of talking me through this and mentioning some of the, asking me if I studied for the test or, and also I think the more important comment was, well, look, this was a different, potentially different equipment. And so I just mentioned the result to my urologist. He had me redo the PSA at their lab, and it came back at 5.34. which is basically the same as what it was early February.
Yeah.
So
that's
full
great.
anomaly.
I'm still kind of wondering what I should do with my GP office, because I feel like their equipment is just, that it seems almost like a measurement error rather than a fluctuation in my PSA. But okay. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. But I just wanted to share my experience so that maybe you can just, have it as one anecdote. Then,
go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I have one other kind of final thing, but that's a different story, which is I watched the Dr. Emberton video on whether an MRI or other kind of scans can replace a biopsy, and I have to say it did scare me a little bit about biopsies. He definitely makes a story about how biopsies potentially could, he doesn't have any proof, but could seed the cancer elsewhere, with some references to studies about breast cancer in Sweden, with kind of a natural experiment of going from the fine needle biopsies to then the kind of spring-based biopsies, and so yeah, I don't know if anybody has any kind of comments or did they watch the videos. I feel like it's a bit overblown. I don't want to over panic about biopsies, but it was definitely not just about, hey, MRIs are getting better. No, he was saying biopsies, are to be avoided if we can. And so I think his story is more of like, look, if you can do a scan and you can have enough evidence that the cancer has progressed in such a way that you need to move to treatment, then you can avoid a biopsy. That's kind of where he was going, rather than saying that you should remove biopsy. But it was an interesting video for sure.
Okay. Well, for your first point about your spikes with your PSA, you're in somewhat of a unique situation with how you're treated and where you're treated and going back and forth. So I would say, and I think most of us would agree, that the best thing you can do is try to stay consistent in where you get your results. And kind of going back to what we were talking about with the AUA guidelines, be consistent in how you prepare for the tests. And I think going back last week, most of us thought that having a biopsy having a PSA that soon after a biopsy is probably not the best thing to do. So if Hugh were here, he would say the trend is your friend. So continue to be tested and see how things go from there. So on the second piece, I'll open it up, and I know Andy has a question, but I want to see if there's anybody else that has a comment on that before I turn the floor over to Andy.
I do.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah, I guess, Emberton saying that, there's a possibility, I honestly don't know why he even commented on the thing. When you consider the amount of biopsies that are being done, like there are like literally hundreds of thousands of biopsies being done. If there was any possibility of seeding, I think, or prostate cancer, being made aggressive or being caused through a biopsy, I just have to believe that would have been exposed long ago. I know it's a sort of a perennial fear of everybody having a biopsy, but how else do you find out whether you've got prostate cancer?
So I'm dropping in the chat something from cancer.org, and their comment is it's exceedingly rare.
Exceedingly rare.
Yes. So the short answer to this question is that it is extremely rare for cancer to be spread during a biopsy. And the benefit of getting a biopsy, the benefits outweigh significantly the minimal risk of having that. So
Exactly.
go ahead, Andy, you had a comment.
Well, on Emberton's webinar, he didn't say there was any certainty, number one. Number two, yes, it was interesting video of it going into the venous system and the prostate. But it is a small amount, and nobody has studied this enough to really tell us, is this spreading my cancer and causing metastasis, or, you know, spreading it throughout the same organ or not? There just haven't been enough studies done related to that for any of us to kind of jump on it. Plus the fact that where he is and his form of practice is different. You know, he has very good medical reasons for treating people with prostate cancer the way he does, and diagnosing them the way he does, and because he believes that it has in fact worked correctly with his own group over the years. And that may be true, but I think you're all correct. It's just hard to say, oh my goodness, I need to, you know, jump back here and not let anybody do a biopsy on me. When the place that we live, at least in the USA, it's just not the way it's done. And also, I think last week on the PSA, you all pointed it out that, I mean, I saw a medical oncologist, they use the, I think it's called the TOAST type of testing versus the Alicia type of testing in another place. There's a difference of 3 points in my PSA. So like you're all saying, the more you can be consistent in the where you're doing it, the more accurate I think it's going to be, and the better you're going to feel about the results.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
So I agree with what people are saying, but I really think that the group needs to reevaluate I mean, it shouldn't come as a huge surprise that Emberton, whose title of his talk was, you know, is this the end of the biopsy? He's going to obviously tilt this more towards his practice, which is a radiological one. And he's going to find some examples of biopsies that have gone awry. Yes, it's rare, but I think up until now, when people have come to our group and said, oh, you know, I need to get a biopsy, is it safe? We've pretty much poo-pooed this. I mean, Emberton showed 2 pictures that were scary as hell. One is he showed a prostate cancer growing inside a guy's rectum who had had a transrectal biopsy. And, you know, there's no way that got there, and, you know, unless it came along the biopsy tract. And then he showed a scarier one, which was from a transperineal biopsy, where there was a tumor, you know, the size of a walnut taken out of some guy's perineum that was also prostate cancer. So the bottom line is it's rare, but when it happens to you, it's 100%. And so I think the answer is, like everything in medicine, there's risk and benefit. The risks are small, but they're not zero. And the benefit is finding out if you've got a cancer and at what stage it is and how it should be treated. So, but I think we're early in this discussion because, as Andy's mentioned and other people have mentioned, no one's really done any kind of controlled biopsy. And I think what Emberton is saying is, in the future, he's hoping that we can basically get the same information to advise men on their, on their strategy without having to stick a bunch of needles into their prostate, which would probably be fine with most of us.
I think it's hard to gauge, especially with an initial diagnosis, how great cancer you have. Is it aggressive or not? And the only way to find out for sure is
through
do
biopsy.
an MRI, is to look at the cells under a microscope.
Well, but I think one of the things he said, and I don't know how to confirm this, but he said that the beauty of MRI is that it's very reproducible. And he said the problem with anatomical pathology is if you stick a needle in the prostate like 5 times, you're going to get 5 different samples that are likely to give you 5 different pieces of information. I think there's probably some truth to that. I mean, some of us have had, I have a core that has a tenth of the core is prostate cancer. You move that needle a centimeter to one side or the other, and you might get nothing. So I think where he thinks we should go is fine, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think there's been enough controlled studies and enough data. But I just think that when men come to our group in the future and say, I've heard this, that, or the other, I don't think we should say the risk is 0, which is kind of the impression we used to give people. The risk is small, and the information gained probably outweighs the risk, but it's not 0.
Yeah, at the minimum, you definitely want MRI fusion guidance. You don't want blind biopsies anymore, for sure.
I dropped the link to a PubMed article, and it cites a study from 2011. There's also an updated one. If you do a search on PubMed for seeding, cancer seeding as a result of biopsy, you can get quite a bit of information. But in my quick glance, most of that it's exceedingly rare. And so I agree with you, Dan, but we also have to remember that about 20% of the people that have biopsies that already have a confirmed through diagnosis through a biopsy, when they have an MRI, they have an MRI, about 20% of the people nothing comes out on the MRI. So that's that balance that we have to be able to provide the folks that are here and say, there's some risk either way. So what's the best way to go with that? So everyone is going to have to make their own decision, obviously.
Yeah, Dan, about that nothing showing up. I mean, that's not no information. High grade tumors, if you believe Emberton, show up. And if you got an MRI and nothing shows up, you have a low grade tumor or no tumor. And if you have a low grade tumor, you can afford to get in the queue and have these things repeated over time. I mean, I know where he wants to go and I get it. I don't think we're there yet, but I can see in the future, hopefully there'll be a more sophisticated, less invasive way to help men figure out what to do about this.
Absolutely. I don't think, like somebody said, I don't think any of us will object to not being poked.
Right. The other thing that he said that he kind of glossed over quickly, and I'm not a surgeon, so I don't totally understand it, but the type of spring-loaded needle they use for prostate biopsies is a needle in a sleeve, and it's supposed to make a clean cut, and the outside sleeve prevents the seeding. So I think there's some safety features built into the current biopsying mechanism, but I don't think any of us went to the doctor's office and said, well, what equipment are you using and is it safe and this, that, and the other. But I think there is a safety feature built into this type of spring-loaded biopsy that's supposed to help prevent seeding. But I don't really understand the details of it. Maybe we could have someone come and talk to us about it.
Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that there is risk, but it's infinitesimal. And we can say it's infinitesimal, but to say that it's anything more than infinitesimal, to me, is really misrepresenting the facts. I mean, there is, and understandably, an obsession, the active surveillance guys, around biopsies. if you're not fortunate enough to be in the category of being able to consider active surveillance, you don't have a choice with the biopsy. You got to get one. And if there's really an issue around seeding, even if the result, even if it's only a 1%, we would see it. But you have to go into the literature and you have to go into the archives and you have to pick out that needle in a haystack in order to be able to report it, which is what Emberton did. And I think it's wrong. And I think it's wrong because it creates anxiety where it's not needed, and there's already enough anxiety. And we don't want AnCan to be creating any more real anxiety than is already needed. So I think if somebody asks the question, we can reasonably say it's so rare as to be probably 1 in a couple of million or more. I don't know what the stats are, but one of you guys can go research. But it is incredibly rare, incredibly rare. And so we shouldn't even be saying that there's a small chance. That overstates it, Dr. Dan. I mean, it really does. And I would never want somebody to turn down a biopsy that was needed because they were worried about seeding. And I think it's our job to disavow that that's a true risk from a biopsy. Now, other cancers, yes. Kidney cancer, for sure. I mean, that's why they don't biopsy kidney cancer, because there's a huge, huge risk in kidney cancer of seeding. But that's just not the case in prostate cancer. That's my 2 cents.
Bill in Virginia, you had your hand up and you dropped it. Did you have a question?
No, I think Dan covered it, and Rick did too. It seems like there's more to it than just looking out for everybody's well-being when it really promotes his practice.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, I think with those particular, what Dan was talking about with the needle and the sheath, I kind of go more with Dan than with Rick on you never get to zero with anything. You just don't. So yes, there's a chance, but I think you're all correct that at this point in any research that's been done, it's very low. Yes, he compared the needle biopsy of the breast to the prostate biopsy. So it's like comparing a machine gun to a spear.
Exactly.
And that's why with the prostate biopsy, yeah, you have a chance that something might be spreading around in there greater than the needle biopsy, which was a point that he made. But I kind of agree. It's in his bailiwick to go in that direction because he feels that's working for him now, at this point in time. My understanding from Dr. Poonen, coming back to the focused biopsy targeting, when it comes to the TP, the 2 types, the BK, which is the one that is not pinpoint. The BK is the one that's extremely generalized. He likes doing the generalized one when the MRI doesn't show things. But when it does, which generally he said means they have a high grade of cancer because we're seeing it, then I'm going to go ahead and pinpoint it. I think it was Gary last week who said he was having a pinpoint, if I'm not mistaken. But that was my understanding from Dr. Poonen today regarding those 2 types of TPs and how they're used and why as relates to the MRI.
Anything else? I think we've kind of beat that.
Yeah.
So with that, Jeff W., over to you. Muted.
No.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, I leaving in Singapore. I perked up when he said he'd gotten a spike in his PSA result. That was my issue tonight. I just got a PSA test 2 days ago, and it came in at 7.92, whereas back in at the end of October last year, what is that, 4.5 months ago, it was 5.57. So the spike to 7.92 was concerning, and immediately, my imagination starts going, okay, what could account for that? What I didn't take into account was, now the same institution, the same clinic, which has multiple branches, I got the PSA test at the same institution, but the PSA test of 2 days ago was at a different clinic than the one in October. So did the same facility process the PSA test? That'll be the question I'll be asking tomorrow. But I'm racking my brain. Did I do anything different in the past 4.5 months that I did in the previous 4.5 months previous to my last PSA test? Well, there was Christmas. There was my birthday. There was there was more sugar. I stay away from sugar. I don't buy any. But you get visitors, I had visitors to my house and food that I wouldn't normally eat and that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's it. I've been cycling. I'm on the bicycle trainer 6 days a week, whereas prior to the PSA test in October, there was a lot more swimming because it was swimming season. So, okay, well, maybe that's it. All right. Okay, it's March now. The weather was getting better. Okay, I'll be getting back to the swimming. Anyways, yesterday afternoon, I'm on ChatGPT for, I don't know, 3 hours, whatever. And what it finally came up with, the key takeaway was get another PSA test in 6 to 8 weeks and see if it's, see if it comes out different. But as Levin's case pointed up, okay, was it did the same facility process the PSA test of 2 days ago as did in October? So anyways, I just throwing that out there because that was my issue tonight. Has anybody else had this experience where they had a PSA spike for no reason that they can put their finger on?
I haven't, but I know others have, and that is not, I won't say it's unusual, but I mean, Alan's raising his hand, Alan waving his hand. Others, it's not unusual to see a spike. So, again, if Hugh were here, he would say the trend is your friend. My question to you is, what is your history been? Have your PSA tests been relatively stable?
I'm just looking at my record.
And how long have you been doing PSA tests?
Since September of 2020.
Okay.
But what was interesting is the test of, like in 2022, in March of 2022, 6.7, several months later, 6.2, 9 months later, 6.9, 7.13. So from March of 22 to January of 24, for example, it really didn't change much at all. 6.95 versus 6.20, 6.7 versus 7.13.
And what was your last one again?
The one of 2 days ago, 5.57. The one of the end of October, 5.57. So, yeah, that's quite a jump, and it doesn't show up in my record. A jump like that doesn't really. Well, there was a November of 2024, I had 7.3. March of 25, 4 months later, 8.5. Time of year? Could that be? Could that explain?
Well, it seems like you've had your PSA has kind of done this from what you just said. So it doesn't seem like you have a, when I can say consistent, you know, if you're within a few points here and there, yours seems like you've bounced around between 4 and 7, high 7.
Yeah, when I got the result of the end of October of 2025, a few months ago, the 5.57, I really thought, gee, you know, the diet changes that I've made are really showing up in the result. And that may be the case, because I really did, you know. I mean, I wasn't reckless with my diet before that, but, you know, when I got 7.3 in November of 2024, that was like a wake-up call. Like, you just get, you know, get serious with this. Let's see. I had an 8.5 in a year ago. So, okay, you know, well, yeah, again, time of year, could be time of year. But yeah, so it has jumped around a bit. When I got the 5.5 in October of last year, I look back at my record and go, 5.5, it hasn't been that low since May of 2021.
Right.
And
now that it's back up, you're more concerned.
Yeah, because I just
it almost seems like the fives are more the anomaly than the 6s and 7s, based on what you've been.
Yeah, I would have to say yes.
Okay, Andy, go ahead.
So maybe the moon's in Pluto. What I was going to ask is, on your lab PSA tests on the sheet there, the report, it should tell you what equipment was used. Does it?
I'd have to look that up.
Often it will. So you know, I had what you're talking about. January 05, 1.9. I was normally, you know, in the 2s for 20 years of PSAs. And then in September of last year, it was 5.4, and then 2 weeks later it was 7.6. And I had done none of the things that would have precipitated this. And that put me on the road I'm currently on, with getting the MRI, the biopsy, and so on and so forth. My last one 3 weeks ago was 1.9. And I know Dr. Dan be interested in this, but I said, well, what would cause that? You know, why the precipitous rise and all of a sudden 1.9? And he said, well, clearly it's not the cancer, which we all agreed to last time. And you know what his comment was? Probably a mild form of prostatitis. And I know, Dan, Dr. Dan, you can appreciate that because of your comment about that, and how that's kind of the common, you know, solution to everything, because we really don't know, and you know, that's the generalization. But they should tell you about those PSAs what the actual procedure is. It should be in there. And
well,
if you go to a different place and it's a different procedure, that's going to be very different. You know, those numbers are going to be widely spread. You go to the same place and it's a smaller difference. It's just the calibration of the same machine, if that's the machine that shows on the readings in your report.
All I see is the PSA test of 2 days ago, Roche electroluminescence method.
That's what you're looking for.
So it's the same as, it was the same, yeah, same thing as in.
You know, they were all the same. So the calibration could have been different, you know, but still, at least you know they're using the same type of test.
Yeah. So, calibration. So that sounds like there is a, you know, an operator, an element of, you know, whoever is doing the processing or the equipment that, you know, the interaction between the human doing the processing and their equipment could, you know, perhaps there was a, you know, a difference there.
I don't know if they calibrate them with each test. I kind of doubt it. I think there's probably a rule about the frequency of calibrating your equipment, whether it's weekly, monthly, I have no idea, but I just know that that can make a difference.
Okay.
If you're sick too, that can play a role. Any inflammation in your body can skew your PSA. So if you're just getting over a cold or an injury or something, that can always skew it slightly enough to be like, huh?
Yeah, the only thing I can think is the night before I had chicken vegetable soup, which I don't usually have for dinner,
I don't think that.
There was something I just read, I'll see if I can find them, that the having COVID and getting the COVID vaccine can change your PSA.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah, it wasn't that. There was,
Okay.
didn't have that.
But it seems like it went up and then it went down. So I think the trend is down currently in the 5s. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
Is that before or after you had the chicken soup?
I actually thought about that, like, oh gosh, tomorrow morning I'm getting the PSA test. Tonight I'm having a different dinner than my usual thing with tomato stuff in it. Yeah, so a year ago it was 8.5. Then in June of last year, it went down to 6.4. Then in October, 5.5. So the trend from March of last year through October of last year was downward. And then, here's the 7.9 that jumps up 2 days ago. So
when did you implement your diet changes? Last year?
Yeah, like a year ago.
You could
the real
associate it with that.
The big change was like June of last year. That's when I'm eating basically the same stuff as I started eating in June of last year. So my diet hasn't changed since June of last year.
Good. Just keep it that way and keep monitoring your PSA. And do you have an MRI coming up or anything?
That would be this summer. Yeah, I had an MRI in August of last year, so I'll have another one in in the summer.
Yeah, compare those two and go from there.
Yeah. I just, I'm sure you guys have been through this. If you get a spike, you just go, oh, well, what do I jump? How high? What? So. But
we've got a couple of hands raised.
I open it up to Ray. Go ahead. Ray.
Yeah, I was just going to say that real quick. Pretty much what Andy said is you have to look at the assay, which you said was Roche, because I had a couple of blood tests ago. I have it all done at LabCorp, but LabCorp used a different assay and it came in at 1.3. So then I had them. Same blood sample, do it with the Roche, which is what I usually get, and it came back like 2.7. So you got to make sure, even if it's the same lab, it's the same assay. But it looks like that's what you're looking at is the Roche. So just make sure it's the same across all of them.
Yeah.
Was that it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Dan, you had something?
Yeah, I'm back. Alan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment. My whole case started with my PSA doubling. I was sent to a urologist. They started the test. It was 2 or 3 weeks till I could get into the urologist, and he redid the test. I was back down by half. 2 years later, I more than doubled. I went from my month, typically under 2, I was at 5. You can imagine how upset I was.
Yeah.
So the doctor, he said, well, let's do it again. 2 weeks later, I was down to 2 something. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I was in for my physical, and he said, well, you want, we'll do it yet again, back down. I've asked MSK, I've asked the urologist. Their constant answer, I know Dr. Dan's going to frown at me, is I most probably have some form of prostatitis. The first time I was actually complaining about some groin pain. And what they do is they just keep retesting on me. And I think it's the same thing for all of us. If you see a sudden spike, don't get terribly upset. Go a little bit and get retested. The other comment that just came up, I was due for my test. I was scheduled it for December because I was seeing the doctor in January, and I got the flu. I called MSK and said, what do I do? They said, delay your PSA test to the last possible day before you're going to see the doctor. They said, it's not definite that that's going to drive it up, but they said, we sure don't want to take the chance. We want you to wait on your blood test to the last minute and get as far away from the flu as possible. Because I was also taking, they had me on Tylenol, they had me on various things. They said, let's get as much of that out of your body before we do the PSA test.
Yeah.
And then when they did the PSA, it was done the very beginning of January, right before the doctor. I was infinitesimally up from where I'm normally. I think it was a 2.2 where last one was 1.9. And they said, yeah, you're in range. That's not an issue. We'll see you in 6 months.
Alan, I take it most of those were the same assay and lab?
Always. When I just went into MSK in January and I'm scheduled for June, you can do it here. I'm like, no, I've always done it at the particular lab. Can you give me a prescription and I'll go back to that lab?
Yeah.
You guys have drilled that into my head.
Good to hear.
Go ahead, Dan.
So first of all, let me empathize with Jeff, because I think a lot of us, when we found out we had this and we were on active surveillance, we got this idea that this was something we could control, that like, okay, we're going to get religion about diet and exercise. I mean, if I could exercise 8 days a week, I would. And we have this idea that if we do all these things, we're going to get rewarded with a better PSA. And the body just doesn't work that way. As an example, if you would go in every time you would have your PSA checked, you would have a chem panel drawn with your liver function and your kidney function and your albumin and all the other things they test, the blood urea nitrogen. It would be different every time. But we're not doing that. We're just totally focused in on this PSA value. And I think the fact that you're down in the 5s and you've been up in the 8s, you should be, whatever you're doing is working. Now, the other thing you need to understand is that the NCCN guidelines about, staying on active surveillance, they consider anything below 10 okay. So you're not getting extra bonus points for being 5 or 6 or 7. You're still below 10. You're still a candidate for active surveillance. You haven't lost anything. To Alan's point, I had this nasty respiratory thing that's going around the U.S. In February when my PSA was scheduled, and I wasn't smart enough to know, and so I went and had my PSA done, and it jumped from 8 something to 10 something, and I said, oh, well, that can't be right because I'm exercising and I'm eating right and blah, blah, blah. So I had it done a week later, and it was 13 something. So I waited 3 weeks now and had it checked again. I'm over this cold and it's back down into the 10s, and I assume it's going to keep going down. So it's very clear that all sorts of systemic inflammation and stresses can do it. By the way, there's a diurnal variation for PSA. So your PSA is higher in the morning than it is in the afternoon. And if you're dehydrated, all your blood chemistries are going to look a little higher than if you had just drunk a bunch of water, which is a kind of cheating way to make your PSA go down. So, if you've been sitting a lot or riding the bike, by the way, riding, they say 2 or 3 days, PSA has a half-life of 5 days. So if you wait 5 days, whatever PSA rise you got from having sex or riding the bike, it's only halfway down from whatever that rise was. So if we believe there was a rise. So my point is, now you're nervous about this. The next time you go to have your PSA done, you're going to get a shitty night's sleep. That's probably going to be reflected somehow in a higher PSA. I mean, this just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So somehow you got to conquer this thing. And I don't know what the solution is because I suffer from the same anxious surveillance phenomena. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work the way we like to think it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that help you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of your story was like, God, that's me. Yeah. The diet, the exercise. If I could exercise 8 days with it, like I ate a whole bunch of cauliflower, broccoli, carrots, and kale.
But that's good, and that's why men with low-grade prostate cancer outlive their age-matched cohorts. Is because they get serious about this and they make improvements in their lifestyle. So, pat yourself on the back instead of kicking yourself in the butt.
Yeah,
exactly.
Go ahead, Phil. You got your hand up.
I was just going to say, the one, how can you say there's anything good about getting a diagnosis of prostate cancer? But the one good thing is it sort of focuses you on your general health. Yes. And if you're taking care of your heart,
yes,
then for sure you're taking care of your prostate.
Yep.
Yes.
And don't worry about the PSA is going to bounce around, and as long as you're in a fairly narrow range, you should be fine. And I guess the only thing that gets over anxious surveillance is being on active surveillance for years and years and years. I mean, I've been on for what seems like a lifetime, so I'm not quite as nervous every time I do a 6-month PSA. But I got to tell you, I still think about it, although I don't lose a night's sleep.
Mm.
By the way, Dan, there is one thing we should probably tell Jeff about, and I don't know if he knows, but biotin,
yes,
which is in a lot of different vitamins and stuff, that can screw up your tests. So make sure you're not taking that.
Yeah, I do take like a multivitamin, although months ago, Rick Davis said, oh no, multivitamin, no, I don't think you need it. So I have these multivitamins that 2 is the equivalent of 1. So I cut back to a half of 1, well, okay, this party says this party says the opposite. Okay, I'll cut down the middle. That kind of thing.
Well, we got 3 more people that we needed time, so we're gonna move on to Phil.
Yeah.
I hope that helped you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
Oh,
You needed time.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Dan.
Well, I just told my story. I wanted to get the group some follow-up on my PSA done when I had an upper respiratory infection, and yeah, it's true. Don't get tested if you're sick.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention that. I was going to mention the Emberton video, which we've already discussed, and I was going to thank Rick I finally got an appointment to see Dr. Carroll on the 25th. So you know how that goes.
Nice.
And that's kind of unique to me because I'm a BRCA1 carrier. So I just wanted to, it's hard to get a straight answer from urologists about that. When they see BRCA1 in my chart, like large needles jump into their consciousness. And, it's like someone wrote cancer on my forehead, so I wanted to talk to somebody who's got some real world experience with this and get their opinion as to what they thought. So anyway, I'll let the group know what he says.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Rick.
Steven, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just anecdotal as well, but I should have mentioned, so before I got my 9.31 PSA jumping up from 5.31, I had a 3-week very bad throat infection, which had just kind of come back.
Wow, that changes everything.
Yeah. Now you know.
Maybe Jeff will share his chicken soup with you.
And his kale and his cauliflower and broccoli. Okay. Did I miss? So Marty, you joined us late. Have you been with us before?
Marty Keogh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
Oh, Marty Keogh was here when we first started the groups, I think.
Okay. Well, see, I'm the new guy. I don't know.
He's a stalwart.
Okay. Marty, do you need any time tonight before I turn it over to Rick?
He's a repeat offender.
He
Marty!
sometimes he doesn't hang out by his phone all the time. He comes in and he goes, but we can come back to him.
Okay. All right. Before I know you got your hand up, Andy, but I want to get to Rick before I get to you. Did you have something pertinent, Andy, that was that hadn't already been discussed?
Well, just from what everybody said, when the quantity of our lives are in jeopardy, that's when we think about the quality.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I want everybody here because I want to do a spot poll right now. So all get ready to, and the way it would be great if you could answer it is by putting your hand up. So if you don't know how to put your hand up, it's the hand at the bottom, and let me tell you what I want to poll you about. So if you scroll up to the very top, pinned at the very top, you'll see, you should find, or no, I think you have to click on the what's pinned, and you'll see something that says Cancer PEP. That's a website. And Cancer PEP stands for Cancer Patient Empowerment Plan, I think it is. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
I think PEP stands for Patient Empowerment Plan. And when we were at ASCO, GU ASCO, a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, there was a woman on the panel, on Stacey Loeb's panel, because Stacey Loeb had her own panel, and I will tell you that panel, because you'll like this, that panel was called, I want to make sure, Balancing Cure and Quality, Navigating Functional Outcomes in Localized Prostate Cancer. And one of the speakers wanted to talk about survivorship. And their talk was called The Hidden Burden for Patients, Depression, Anxiety, and Decision Regret in Prostate Cancer Care. They didn't talk too much about decision regret. They were out of Dalhousie University in Halifax, which is so far east in Nova Scotia that they have their own time zone. And I think I know where Phil's going with this, because he's already well aware, because they've done a pretty good job in getting the word out in Canada. And they started throwing numbers up on the board. Well, their numbers weren't quite as good, but very comparable with our numbers that we were displaying on a poster the next day. Now, of course, their numbers came out of a clinical trial, and they were also self-reported, I believe, or to some extent self-reported, as ours were. But it made us look pretty good. And I was sitting next to Bill about 2/3 of the way back, and the hall is enormous. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but there's probably 3,000 people sitting in this hall behind desks. It's breathtaking. And I said, and they have microphones at the front, so you can go up and you can talk, whoever you are. And some schmuck came up and told us how great he's just been diagnosed, and Zero's doing a fantastic job by advocating on the Hill. So they really don't prejudge who comes up there. And I said, Bill, maybe I should go up and mention our poster and see if we can get more traffic to the poster tomorrow. And I did go up, and I started with an acknowledgement with a disclosure, because that's what you're supposed to do, right, Doc? You have to give your disclosures before you. And I said, I have a disclosure. Dr. Stacey Loeb is on our advisory board. And she smiled, and she looked directly at Gabriella, and I said, I want to just mention our program. And so I went through the highlights of our program, which some of you have seen by now. And when I walked away, I came back to my desk, I sat down, and I'm listening intently. And I look, and there's a guy sitting at the end of the row. And Bill says, isn't that guy from Duke? I said, no, he's not a Dookie. Well, it turned out it was the presenter's husband, who's a radiation oncologist, whose name is Rob Rutledge.
Yeah.
And we started a conversation. Dr. John was sitting right behind me. And today we had a meeting with them. And what they have is a video program, a 6-month video program, which I have a feeling Phil's going to tell us about as well. And it addresses diet. So they actually do some cooking. It's like a cooking show, and they do some cooking in this video. Exercise, they do exercise in there, some stress reduction techniques, this, that, and the other. And they do it over 6 months with a morning video. And what they wanted from us is to give them access to our guys. It's pretty one way, but we can live with that because we're making a difference. And what they especially want from us to begin with is our active surveillance guys.
Great.
We started talking to them about, well, we'll do a webinar for all of our prostate guys. And then Rob said, well, could we just talk to your active surveillance guys? And we said, yeah, you can do that. So on April 1st, I think it is, we are going to have Rob do an hour presentation to you, a 55-minute presentation to you before our support group. And you will be able to sign up for that 6-month program, which is a bit of a commitment, but not really, because the video comes in and you know, he says a lot of times the guys want the videos after they're done. They like them so much. So my pop-up poll is no commitments. How many of you here would be interested in getting into this 6-month program for diet, education, diet, exercise, and stress reduction? So I would like to sort of get a feel for how many of you would be willing to take something like that on. I told him.
So Rick, can you clarify this is daily for 6 months, 180 videos to learn how to eat properly?
Yes.
Is it live? I can
on video?
On video, I think, I don't know how long the video is, but if you click on the link, there's a lot more information if you click on the link. But yes, it is a daily, I think it's a 10-minute video with exercises and stuff. And I'm curious how many people. So far we've got 1 Canadian, and we've got how many? I got 4 people out of 17. So that's 5 people maybe out of 17. I hope everybody who has their hand up is because yes, they would be interested. And okay, that's helpful. They've got 50 free slots that they want to fill. And if we don't fill them with our active surveillance guys, then we'll turn it over to some of the other peeps. But they really want active surveillance people. So between now and then, you can look at the website, you can stand around. And before I say anything else, I'm going to let Phil or Bill talk about what they know about this program, because they probably have buddies in Canada who have already been signed up.
Yeah, in general, I think it's like really, really helpful for newly diagnosed guys, especially guys who are sort of on the edge in terms of active surveillance, actually in terms of just being diagnosed. And I think it's a terrific program. I mean, these 2 guys, like Rob and Gabrielle, they've been at this for years, and I think it's a really valuable program. But I mean, it's obviously a long-term commitment.
Yeah. Do you know anybody who's done it?
Personally, no, but we've recommended it to a number of people who come to our PSG meetings. So whether they've carried through or not, I don't know. I mean, we're not
Okay.
following up, but we've definitely recommended their services.
And what they're looking for is a cohort in the United States, because they want to compare US to Canada, because they've already done, and they've got some published reports in the European Urology, EAU, or whatever it's called, and there's a lot of stuff, and he'll show you all that in the when he presents, or they both present. I don't know. They'll pitch you.
Yeah, they're
and
really,
you know, it's not going to cost you, which is a good thing.
Free is good.
No real downside, and some of you may really benefit from this.
I mean, they are really, you know, they're really terrific. I mean, they do terrific work.
It looks good. I mean, there doesn't seem to be anything here that's atrocious or egregious, other than, okay, you get daily emails and videos, and people are going to try to encourage you.
Oh no, there's nothing bad. It's just the compliance. You know, you guys have to, you know, and they say they have incredible compliance. They get very, very low dropout rate.
Well, very good.
So
I mean, you're putting the active in active surveillance.
I love it, Phil. Okay. When I write back, I'm going to tell them that's their new line.
Yeah, I mean, they know us because they've presented to our group in Toronto. We've had meetings with them, with both of them, talking about, like, you know, promoting it and stuff like that. I mean, I think that they're doing terrific work. It's like, you know, they don't have to do it, and they're doing it.
So for those of you that are exercising 7 days a week, here's your 8th day.
There you go, Jeff W. You can. This will really get you going. You have your hand up. So, what did you want to ask something about it? I don't know a lot about it, but I'm just, don't shoot the messenger. Go ahead.
I can't say no. I just can't say no. That's where I'm at.
Okay, I love it.
Anything else, Rick?
Yes, I do have something else. First of all, I just want to tell you there was a lot more acceptance of active surveillance at ASCO this year, I felt, in talking to people, and especially amongst the sponsors. I kind of feel like finally, after banging away, you've got to do something for active surveillance, nobody's sort of saying, oh, we're not interested. And some people are saying, yeah, we really want to do some more stuff for active surveillance. So I think that's a really, really good thing. And Eric, yeah, I see you put up who's eligible, but this is a different cohort, and this is all going to be free. So, you know, I don't know if what you're putting up is correct, and it may not be true. Yet let's wait and see what Dr. Rutledge and Dr. Elie say about who they want. The other thing I want to tell you is we are doing a solo arts here with Greg Burns on the 25th of March. It will be a little late for some of you, and it will be recorded, and we will push out the recording, but we'd love to have a few people in there. So somebody like Dr. Dan has no excuse because it's at 7:30. It's at 7:30 Pacific. It will be right after this meeting, and it should be really interesting. I have not seen the videos. One of our ladies and Greg together have picked out the videos, and we'll be pushing it, and we hope that you will come and listen. Ray, you don't have an excuse, man. So
I don't know. I'll have to see if I get a hold. You know, it's family dinner night on Wednesday nights.
Maybe you have to move it to Thursday that week. You know, I don't know. Everybody's got their excuses already. And Dan Dressen's done a solo arts here with us. We did a great solo arts here with Dan Dressen. So yes.
Rick,
we hope
was the
we'll get a good
25th?
Wednesday the 25th, yes.
And what's
Wednesday
happening?
the 25th.
What's happening on that day?
We have a program called Solo Arts Heal, which was at one point monthly, but now it's sort of ad hoc whenever we've got a really good guest. And we find people who have used their artistic talents to help heal themselves and other people. And that talent can be anything from playing the guitar, right, Mr. Dressen, and singing, to painting, and we've had people who tap dance, and we've got all kinds of talent. And Greg Burns, who some of you know from this group, has been around a long time, just had treatment, usually appears without a shirt with a Komodo dragon in the foreground. He is our guest. We don't know if he's going to be joining us from Singapore or from the peninsula, but one or the other. So we hope that you guys will join, and there'll be plenty of time for questions. And he has a very interesting story. He contracted polio as a child. He's severely crippled with leg irons. He was a Paralympic swimmer in three Paralympics. He's a world-recognized artist. Has a studio in Singapore and a studio on the peninsula. He's got lots of great stories. So that's it.
So we'll get some kind of email about this inviting us, or
it will be in the reminders starting next week.
Okay, great.
Okay, so look in the reminders, and we'll tell you, how you sign on and everything else, and it's free, and it'll be it's a lot of fun. And you can also check out the one that maybe in that reminder we'll also include the one Dan did, and any other, if we've had any other active surveillance guys in there that we've done before, we'll put them in as well.
All right. Well, it's 8:37. Do you have anything else, Rick?
No, that's it.
All right.
Sorry to ramble on so much, but it's good.
Don't forget
stuff.
to download the chat, and we'll call it an evening, and moderators, go ahead and stick around.